Hi, our topic is all about realizing that all action have consequences. Let's begin. Here are the things that we should learn by the end of this lesson. First, explain the idea of consequentialism. Second, compare and contrast the theories of consequentialism and consequentialism. Third, realize that all action have consequences. There are different types of consequentialism. Is a group of ethical theories that hold that all action have consequences. This must be the basis of any judgment about the rightness or wrongness of an action or conduct. Consequentialism holds that all action have consequences and that the ultimate basis for any judgment of rightness or wrongness or a conduct or action is the consequence. Basic principles of consequentialism. The rightness or wrongness of an action depends on the result of an action. The more good an act produces, the better on more rightness. For this lesson, we will learn about act consequentialism and rule consequentialism to determine that our action have consequences. There are more types of consequentialism, but we will only focus on these two as they are the easier to comprehend. Now let's move on to utilitarianism. The difference of utilitarianism from other consequentialism theories is that it counts the number of people that it. Utilitarianism is an ethical theory that assesses an act based on overall net benefit. An action is right if it leads to the most happiest of the greatest number of people. Let's first learn about act utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism is the type of utilitarianism that measures the degree of happiness that the greatest number of people will experience from an action. Act utilitarianism tries to predict the utility that a decision or action would cause. Act utilitarianism is associated with Jeremy Bentham's hedonistic calculus. Hedonism measures pain and pleasure, wherein everything that maximizes pleasure and minimizes pain is good. Jeremy Bentham introduced the hedonistic calculus along with his utilitarian philosophy. This is used to measure the benefits and the pain that our action can inflict to ourselves and to others. Act utilitarianism example. Duration. How long does the pleasure or pain last? Remoteness. How near or far is the probability of experiencing pleasure or pain in the future? Purity. How free from pain is an action? Fecundity. Will it lead to other pleasures? Intensity. How powerful is the pleasure? Certainty. How likely it is that pleasure will result? Extent. How many people will experience pleasure?
The other theory of utilitarianism is the rule utilitarianism that John Stuart Mill introduced tell us that even if utilitarianism has no concrete guide aside from determining its consequences, the rule utilitarianism recognizes the necessity of rules that are created for the greater good of the many. Rule utilitarianism. Rule utilitarianism is an ethical principle that recognizes the necessity for rules that are created for the greater good of the many. The rules in rule utilitarianism recognizes that there is possibility for established rules to be modified based on the needs of the people and what would give the people the most happiness. Example, the city government imposed speed limits in the main highway and set up bus and jeepney stops in several designations. The city government aims to minimize pain or negative consequences such as accidents caused by traffic and economic losses caused by delays in transportation. Moreover, the city government wants to increase the pleasure of the people by regulating a better and faster traffic flow and by designating specific places of bus stops and jeepney stops. The shortened travel time will increase production and will give its citizens more time for themselves and for their families.
Now, let's move to another way to determine the moral grounds of the consequences of our actions. Let's learn about the principles of teleology.
Unlike the utilitarianism that emphasizes the happiness of the greater number and hedonism, teleology emphasizes rule of one's purpose in life. Hence, the consequence that a person should ask is whether an action will lead to the cultivation, eudaimonia, or long-term happiness and of one's virtue. Consequentialism teleology. Teleology evaluates the rightness or wrongness of an action by assessing the final or end goal of an action or decision. Aristotle proposed that the end goal of the human life must be happiness and virtue or excellence. For religious people, their end goal is to worship their gods. Hence, to do this, they need to cultivate their faith, hope, and love.
Think about it. Think about it. Look at the boy. He will use the principle of technology should he put the monkey in a cage to prevent it from escaping. He wants it to be his pet, but that means that it won't be able to accomplish its purpose in life. If you will give him an advice, what will it be?
State consequentialism originated from the teachings of the Chinese philosopher. Modi followers of Mohism argued that the moral grounds of an action depends on its holistic consequence in the whole state. Hence, a rightful action produces or enhances order, material wealth, and increase in population. Consequentialism. State consequentialism. State consequentialism is an ethical principle that evaluates an action or decision based on its contribution to the state. It is also called as Moes consequentialism. State consequentialism aims for order, material wealth, and increase in population.
Road signs in street light help in maintain order in a society without the street lights. It is possible for cars going in different directions to not notice the other cars that might cause to an accident. Likewise, road signs in areas that are accident-prone, slippery roads, street roads, help reduce the risk of accident that can lead to injuries and death. The consequence of the creation of street light and road signs are beneficial to the society because it increases the safety of the people.
Ethical altruism is the ethical principle that prescribes that a person must always think about the welfare of other people. Hence, everyone who is altruistic has a moral obligation to help, serve, or benefit other people. Consequentialism. Ethical egoism. Ethical altruism prescribes that one should always think of the consequences of his or her action to other people. Auguste Comte's dictum was live for others. People who believe in ethical altruism have a moral obligation to help, serve, or benefit other people, even at the expense of one's self-interest.
Unlike ethical altruism, ethical egoism prescribes that before doing an action, we must consider its overall effect to oneself. Ethical egoism prescribes that one should always think of the consequences and effect of something by using himself or herself as a point of reference. It claims that every action must be beneficial to one's own welfare and maximize one's self-interest. In a disaster, the very first thing that one should always ensure is one's safety. It would be illogical for someone to return to a dangerous area to help someone at the expense of one's life. In summary, here are the things that we need to remember in this lesson. Summary: consequentialism holds that all action have consequences and that the ultimate basis for any judgment of rightness or wrongness of a conduct or action is their consequences. What are the aspects that we need to consider in evaluating the consequences of our actions? Utilitarianism. The greatest number of happiness for greatest number of people. Teleology, final or end goal of an action or decision. State consequentialism, welfare of the whole society or state. Ethical altruism, welfare of other people. Ethical egoism, maximize good for oneself. This is the end of our group presentation. Thank you and God bless.